1 year ago today, when I was a delegate at Synod, I was here and the moving truck pulled up to our parsonage. I left Synod, I went to a wedding rehearsal, did a wedding the following day, said goodbye to my congregation on Sunday, and on Monday we moved to Iowa. I do not recommend that as a strategy, by the way, though I hear the Benjamins are also moving, but in a couple of weeks, so. But I moved to Classes Heartland, and when I arrived there and went to the first classes meeting, they had an overture they'd kind of been percolating on for a couple of years, but were struggling with. And as the new guy, they said maybe he can help this person how to write an overture. Then I said, well, I'm sure I can do that. But the long and the short of it is, I ended up helping this person along, and so it's on my overture, but in order to avoid even the appearance of conflict, I'm going to recuse myself and allow our vice president to lead this final deliberation for us.
Yeah, I invite Paul Vanderclay and Craig Lubin to come forward as well. We're looking at 7B. Yeah, 7B. So Paul's coming forward and Craig as well. We're looking at 7B, maybe some introductory comments. We're dealing with the banner here and its work. So a reminder that we have this is a unified report. So there's lots of complex things are involved, but there is a unified report, so they have talked things through quite well. And I want to clarify as well that we are talking about the mandate of the banner. So we're not talking about personnel, or we're not talking about the editor or the banner staff. Actually, the banner staff is here this morning, so they're listening in. So we're going to stay focused on the mandate, and if we're going off the mandate to talk about people or certain things that have been written in the past or whatever, then I'm going to kind of like wag my finger at you and say, stay on task, stay at the point. We're dealing with the mandate this morning. And at the very end of it all, too, Paul or Craig will offer maybe a word of prayer as well for the staff of the banner and the banner editor as well. Maybe, yeah, you're probably going to give us a bit of a summary of how you want to handle this.
Happy to do that. When we were requested a few days ago to be the first advisory committee to report, it did not occur to me that the leaders would choose this moment to demonstrate that the first shall be last. But here we are. Our committee addressed Overture 5 and 6, so I'm going to give you a little background on those overtures in our discussion, and then I'll get right into our recommendation. Overture 5 came from the First Artesia, California Christian Reformed Church, and basically the gist of that overture was that the banner was not balanced in its reporting, that in particular conservative voices could not be heard, and they gave a number of what they believed to be examples of that. And their proposed remedy was that the banner, the existing mandate, be thrown out, and that a committee be appointed to rewrite the banner mandate to be presented at some subsequent synod. That was, in a nutshell, Overture 5. Overture 6 came from Classes Heartland, and Overture 6 had a similar concern but a slightly different take on it. In particular, Overture 6 talked about the banner's commitment to publishing controversial articles and assuring that it is an anti-echo chamber. In other words, that they're not just one voice being, not just one view being presented. And what Classes Heartland pointed out was this mandate was prepared before the banner had such a significant online presence. And so while the vision may have been that publishing multiple articles with multiple positions might be like being around a kitchen table and debating various viewpoints, when you're talking about the official publication of the Christian Reformed Church, it was available to a wide audience beyond the church, it created a lack of clarity about the church's position. And Their proposed remedy was to rewrite, was to amend the existing mandate. The third item we considered was the Council of Delegates Supplement 3A, including Appendix D. That was basically a response to what these overtures brought, and it was written, as I understand it, by the editor Chong, and it kind of set forth the interpretation of the overtures and a response to them. So those were the documents that we reviewed as a committee. We also met with the editor and discussed the overtures, and then we talked about it as a committee. One of the things, frankly, that surprised me was the overwhelming consensus of our committee that the banner was not helping us and helping them in their ministries. In particular, the concern that the presentation of diverse views was creating a lack of clarity about the church's position and increasing disunity as opposed to promoting unity. That was the view of the overwhelming majority of our committee. We're also fortunate to have youth advisors who were willing to speak, and they did an excellent job in representing themselves. And one of the things that they said is, in the online world, they're looking for clarity of presentation about what does your church believe. And so they too shared that they found that the banner's commitment to controversial positions was creating confusion and ambiguity. We processed all that as a committee, and our conclusion was that, in fact, a revision to the mandate is appropriate. Mandates get amended from time to time to meet the needs of the church, and it was the conclusion of our committee that it was appropriate to amend the mandate of the banner at this time. And so that leads to our recommendation, and that is that the Synod amend the synodical mandate and guidelines for the banner as follows, with underlining indicating additions and strike-throughs indicating deletions. Let me start by saying, if you want to see the current mandate unedited, that's available at page 350 of the agenda, 350 to 352. What we've replicated here is only the portions that we are proposing to edit. So with respect to the mandate of the banner and the list of responsibilities there, you see the first four are existing. What we propose to add is the following, that the banner represent the denomination publicly to the broader Christian church and to the world at large by speaking from a distinctly Reformed perspective in line with our confessions and synodical decisions, representing the CRCNA as its official publication. And the fact that it's the official publication of the CRC was part of what drove our discussion as well. With regard to the general responsibilities, you will see that these are the existing. With regard to general responsibilities, Part A2, you see that we proposed to strike the words diverse, within, and about, so that it would now read, presenting the readers the issues pertinent to the life of the church in a way that shows positions held by the church and encourages biblical and Reformed thinking of these issues. And then section B and C, again, we didn't propose to change anything there. You can view that in the agenda if you wish. Item 3, freedom of the editorial staff. A and B, we propose no change. With respect to C and D, we propose to strike those. I won't read them. I think you can read them through the strike-through, but we propose to delete those. And with regard to what was formerly E, we would now call that C, and we would make the addition at the end so that C would now read, provide a biblically prophetic and responsible criticism and evaluation of trends within the church and society. and of actions, decisions, policies, programs, etc., being considered by or already approved by ecclesiastical assemblies and agencies, and this is our addition, with proper acknowledgement and respect for the official position of the CRCNA, and within the confines of our confessional covenant commitments. And the grounds that we present is that while it is necessary for any publication to consider and allow for diverse viewpoints, as the magazine of the CRCNA, it should represent our denomination's official, confessional, and biblical positions faithfully and acknowledge any articles which are in conflict with them clearly so as to avoid current confusion within and outside the denomination. And since the banner does represent the CRC, the publication should do so in a way that accurately fulfills the synodical mandate to think critically on various issues and are in line with the existing regulations under editorial integrity. Point A, quote, "The banner materials should be faithful to Scripture and the confessions," close quote. So that is the gist of it. That we have a second recommendation, but perhaps I'll hold on that till the end. And that is our motion.
That's your motion that's on the floor. A question for clarification for me, first of all. Like Chong was going to potentially speak. At what point would you like him to address the Synod?
Now is fine.
Now is fine. Okay, Chong. Chong's just going to explain, explain some things. We're not having a big dialogue with Chong, but he wants to explain how this might change his work.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Is it Vice President? I guess, I'm sorry. What do I call you?
I'm chair now.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the privilege of addressing Synod here. I'm Xiao Chong, editor of the Banner. I prefer everybody to call me Chong, though, just by my last name. It's a lot easier. And first of all, thank you to Advisory Committee 7 for all the work that you have done. Appreciate it that I got a chance to talk to you with the committee on Friday, and thank you for the reporter and the chair and the leadership in all this. Before I continue, I just want to give a little confession. I'm a little depressed this morning, a little depressed, because my beloved Edmonton Oilers lost the Stanley Cup again, second year in a row. Hopefully, as I say, third time's the charm, so maybe next year. As you probably guessed by now, I'm Canadian, and I do live and work out of Mississauga, which is not too far from here. So, I'm not advocating, right? I'm not advocating or speaking for or against the motion. As staff, I'm not supposed to advocate for anything. So what I'm doing here is just giving some clarifications. Already some clarifications already been sort of hinted at earlier, and I just want to clarify them further so that to help Synod in its deliberations on this topic. So, so basically just two clarifications, and the first one might be a bit longer. First, I trust that you have already read, as mentioned by Craig, the reporter, the Council of Delegates' right to comment on Overtures 5 and 6 in the COD supplement. And yes, I did draft the initial comment, but it was worked on by the Banner Advisory Committee and sort of changed and worked a little bit before we went to the COD, and the COD adopted that right of comment as their right of comment as well to Synod. It's just so you know that it's not just all me. it's a body working with it. And in that comment, it was laid out, there were two fundamental visions of what the banner should be. I just want to clarify that and remind the body about that. One vision that is laid out has been the historic vision of the banner, and is that the banner is a forum of multiple voices in the denomination. The metaphor, the kitchen table that was mentioned earlier. And the second vision that is laid out in the COD supplement, can't write a comment, is that of the banner as representing the singular voice of the institution. All right, so multiple voices in the denomination versus a singular voice of the institution. So Advisory Committee 7B's recommendations, I think, is pretty clear that it's moving the vision of the banner, right, from the multiple voices, the diverse voices, into more of a singular voice of the institution. I believe that would be the spirit. I think that's fair of what the Advisory Committee 7B's recommendations cumulatively move us towards to. So just to clarify that, the suggested deletions and removals of guidelines C and D under Section 3, freedom of editorial staff especially, means that we are removing the kitchen table, so to speak. We're getting rid of the kitchen table, and we want to have the banner as representing the singular voice of the institution. Again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or right thing to do, and that's your prerogative. You have to decide about that. I'm just making it clear. This is what we are debating about, all right? And it's just be clear, it's not a small change. It's a major shift, a fundamental shift in what the banner is supposed to be and has been. I might want to add, can I just add a little explanation as to why synods in the past have had these clauses like C and D? Just to explain, you may be wondering, why would synod in the past allow for diverse viewpoints to begin with in its official publication? So if I may just give a little brief explanation as to maybe the logic behind this, as I understand it. So I think the logic behind why past synods have thought it might be a good idea to allow the banner to have diverse voices and viewpoints is because I think that being exposed to challenging ideas can actually help us grow spiritually, even when it makes us uncomfortable, right? Even if we have to wrestle with it, that wrestling and that uncomfortableness maybe can help us grow spiritual maturity. I think it was interesting, that video earlier together talked a little bit about that as well too. And how might that work, you might think? So I'll just use a little, very brief story that I heard that I'll share with you that might illustrate this principle. In 1991, in the desert of Arizona, there were scientists that were doing an experiment. And the experiment was this biodome. They call it Biosphere 2. Biosphere 2. Don't ask me what happened to Biosphere 1, I don't know. I just know about Biosphere 2. So Biosphere 2 is this kind of controlled environment, experiment that they have this living ecological environment inside the dome. So they had the controlled, there are plants and trees and whatnot. They have the ideal conditions for growth, perfect amount of light, heat, water, soil. So now the trees in the biosphere grew faster than normal, grew faster than the trees that were planted outside, the regular in the wild, which you would expect because of the ideal growth conditions. But they found something interesting. What happened was that as the trees grow up to a certain age, or grow up to a certain height, they all start falling down. All the trees start falling down. And the scientists were puzzled about why this was so. Before they reached maturity even, they were falling over. They couldn't carry their own weight. They weren't strong enough. And apparently, as the story goes, they found out that there was no wind in the biosphere. There was no blowing wind, and as the trees were growing, they never faced any kind of resistance, any kinds of shaking, any kind of buffering, any kind of challenge, no stress. There was there was perfect environment with no stress as they were growing, so they never really grown to have stronger, wood, bark, never needed to dig deeper in their roots into the soil so that they don't have to fall over. So that's the reason why they figured these trees in the biosphere, even though they grew faster, weren't strong enough and didn't reach maturity because they couldn't carry their own weight. They were never tested. And that's why they fell. I think that's the logic behind this. By the way, that's a nice spiritual analogy, right? Pastors, you could borrow that for your sermons if you want. It's a freebie. But I think past synods was thinking about this principle, which is why they kind of had this kind of controlled location. Only in the banner you are allowed this, no place else. We have a kind of controlled stress, challenge, uncomfortableness environment to help us stimulate us into spiritual growth. That's why I think the logic was. So that's that. And just explaining that. Again, you don't have to keep that, all right? I mean, that's your decision. You can change that if you want. But I'm just explaining perhaps the reasoning behind why they did that. So my final point, just 2 points, right? My second point is already sort of mentioned already. There is a difference. You have to recognize the difference between talking about the mandate and the purpose of the banner versus, the editor's performance, right? We are talking about what is the banner for, and this is for the long term, regardless of who the editor is or will be. What is the banner for us? How does it serve our denomination? That's the question that you need to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Chung. That's helpful. Okay. We have the recommendation on the floor that Synod amend the synodical mandate and guidelines for the banner as follows, and it's really all one big thing, right, Craig? Yeah.
That's correct.
So we'll have some discussion. So Joseph Campice is up first, then John Tamming and Tyler Wagemaker.
Joe Campice, Classes Red Mesa. So first to make my point, and then I'll explain a little bit about that analogy because I actually included it in my Doctor of Ministry program. But being that it's the official publication changes things. And it limits our freedom of the press to the bonds of the confessions. And I think that's in line with the same thing we saw when we were interviewing professors for Calvin Theological Seminary, and we made sure that their academic freedom was going to be within the confessional bonds of the denomination because it's the official college and seminary of the Christian Reformed Church in North America. I did my Doctor of Ministry at Vanderbilt Divinity School. I loved my experience there. I had all the academic freedom in the world, but there was no roots. There was no in bounds, out of bounds, nothing. Whatever you wanted to say, believe, whatever it was, you could do. I would not have wanted to do my Master of Divinity there because you need roots. And I think that the analogy that Mr. Chung shared with us is important, but I think it also tells us that we have to drill our roots deep before we go face the wind. Because if you don't drill the roots deep before the wind comes, then any wind will blow you. Thank you.
Thank you. John Tamming, Tyler Wagemaker, Jeffrey Bennett.
John Tamming, Classes Huron, Owen Sound. I just want to say, first of all, we had a great breakfast this morning. I noticed somebody from Thornapple 2 feet from me. We had a great breakfast. Now, it was really great to meet people from your committee. I appreciate all the work you do. I'm a Canadian, and I tend to have opinions. We heard that the other night. Never would I have thought that we'd see the day where the word diverse is actually struck through on the mandate of the banner. When I was a boy, I would come home from London Christian High on the bus in Strathroy, and if it was Thursday, I was excited because the banner would be on the table. I didn't have many friends back then. And my mom would either be happy or angry. And I remember once she was livid. DeCoster was the editor. I think he said something in support of Gerald Ford. or the Vietnam War. I remember coming home from Calvin a few years later, and Mom was excited. Martha Tamming is my mother. I just wanted to get that out there. And she was excited because there was a cover of the burning, It's Time to Burn the Wooden Shoes by Kuyvenhoven. Like him or hate him, and a lot of people were either side, at least it was a magazine that conveyed a vitality of opinions, and at least it was a magazine that you could agree or disagree with. I'm just reading the history of the Banner of Henry Kuiper, who was the giant of the Banner. 15 years into the existence of the Banner, he became the editor. DeYoung wrote his biography. And one of the things Kuiper decided to do was, if he was ever going to write on a controversial matter, he would donate a page of the Banner to somebody in opposition to that view. Now, DeYoung says he never carried out the promise, but at least it was made. The point was Kuiper thought it was a forum for debate, and the Banner for years had that. Now, the debate can't go anywhere. I get that. You need guardrails. I get that. But I beg the committee not to strike through the word diverse, not to render the magazine as some sort of promotional brochure. The last thing I'll leave you with is this. Mark Twain once described, rather uncharitably, the Book of Mormon as chloroform in print, which wasn't very nice. But the last thing I think we want to see is a Banner deracinated, denuded of vitality, and just some sort of boring thing that shows up once a month. Please do not accept this motion. Thank you.
We have Tyler Wagemaker, Jeffrey Bennett, and Drew Ryder.
Tyler Wagemaker, Class of Zealand. This message, by the way, is brought to you by Three Forms Podcast. So, but I do want to bring up, Mr. Chairman, I speak in favor of this recommendation because the illustration that Chong gave to us is fitting. There is value, of course, in exposing ourselves to many different viewpoints. But the reality is nowadays, of course, in our life, in our culture, is that so many of our families access so many publications on so many different levels, online, in print. The Banner, which historically was kind of the go-to publication for many Christian Reformed families that they would go to say, what are the thoughts of the day? That is a bygone era now. Nowadays, because everything is so accessible online, through online publications, through news cycles, which are constantly with talking heads, we hear a variety of so many different perspectives, which are so easily shared on social media. And so the role of the Banner needing to be that no longer exists. Now, in many ways, because I constantly am inundated by individuals who say, the Banner put this, is this what the Christian Reformed Church believes? Because it is understood to be the kind of the mouthpiece, the official publication of our denomination. It's essential that as more people are, again, I would say, getting more enthusiastic about the Christian Reformed Church, about decisions that we have made, that it would be paired with a denominational publication that then trumpets that and puts that forward in an exciting way, an enthusiastic way that helps us with our ministry. And I would like to see the Banner then be a help. Right now, sadly, too often it's a hindrance, Mr. Chairman. So that's why I speak very much in favor of this recommendation.
Thank you. Jeffrey Bennett, Drew Ryder, and Greg Sinclair.
Jeff Bennett, elder from Pacific Northwest. And I don't know where I stand, and I have some questions, but let me tell you where this is coming from. I have instructed multiple individuals over the years on critical thinking. I've been a mentor to helping critical thinking, and I do see the importance of having diverse views, struggling, and then especially most of that has not been in the Christian context, but in the Christian context, going to the Word and discovering for yourself and looking at what does the Scripture say? Where is this? And so I spent a lot of time reading this week because I hadn't had a lot of history reading the Banner, and I spent a lot of time reading the articles that were in the supplements and such, and they do really great work. But what I also heard from your report, which I appreciate you sharing, is that given that the current context that we are in with a news culture that the way that it's currently presented presents confusion for our congregations. We are in a world where there are echo chambers. Each publication seems to have slants. You're not seeing this style of news anymore. My question is, did you, as a committee, discuss if there was not another way to have the banner as this type of formation, but also have some type of kitchen table type so we don't lose the value that we have had, and we can still be in a culture that wants an echo chamber, have a spot for folks to go and be challenged? And was that part of your discussion at all?
I would say yes. I'm not sure I would characterize it exactly like that, but what I would say is, as a committee, we talked about the fact that there are so many forums to provide differing views. And it is certainly not our desire to squelch diversity of opinion. If you come to Synod, you realize very quickly the CRC is ripe with differences of opinion, and that's a good thing, and we have bodies to do that. But the banner is the official publication of the church. And so when we go through, as we have over the last several years, these vigorous debates, the question becomes, can we finally come to a decision? I think we have. And then when we come to a decision, can we present that decision to the church through the official publication? Or do we continue to say, well, you know, that is the opinion, but not all of us agree with it, and maybe it's not right? Is the banner the right body to do that? There are other vehicles to do that, and I would note, for example, that under 2A4, which we are not changing, the banner is a vehicle through which church members can express their views and opinions in pertinent issues. We are certainly not proposing to stop the letters to the editors where people express a different view. That still happens. But we thought it important for the banner that as the official publication had stated. Now, we thought it beyond the purview of our committee, but we thought it was a fair question in the changing environment of social media. Is it time to reimagine all of our publications to think about what's the most effective way to meet our audience? That's beyond the scope of this particular proposal. Is that responsive?
Yes, but why didn't then, can you share some insight on why your committee didn't look at the other solution that was presented?
I think we'll move on. Other people want to ask questions too. You asked your question, that's good.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
He asked me if it was responsive.
Yeah,
and I had
that's maybe out of
answered,
order.
and I apologize.
That's out of order, sorry.
I won't ask if it's responsive.
Thank you. We're getting lots of, we're finding where the boundaries are for this conversation, which is all good. Lots of good stuff there. Just a reminder, though, that we have lots of names that are adding up. So, reminder that you're probably you might even hear your opinion being expressed. So if you want to take your name off, you may do so as well. But we're hearing good opinions. This is good conversation. And I want to say hi to my wife, who has just walked into the room, and she's the most wonderful person in the world. Drew Ryder, Greg Sinclair, and Jonathan Sprunk.
Drew Ryder, Classis, Central Plains, elder, delegate. It's the first time I've spoken at Synod. It's kind of cool. You have power. So I speak against the recommendation. I have some ideas on, I actually don't disagree with the spirit of what the committee did. And if I have the opportunity, if this is defeated, I have some things that I can bring to the floor of the Synod that are a potential solution that essentially provides more clarity. I think that's what's missing from this recommendation. This Synod, we've talked a lot about unity and about education. We don't have enough young people going through seminary. And I've talked to a lot of people here at Synod about that. Like, how do we get more young people excited about being in ministry and excited about being in the CRC? And the banner actually could play a very good, important role in fostering some of that interest. So, yeah, I feel I'm also just by profession, I'm a journalist, so I have no issues at all with the professionalism of the Banner and how well the editorial staff works. And we're really discussing the mandate, and again, I think that there's a better way to provide clearer guidelines in terms of in answering some of the concerns, the very valid concerns brought by the body about how the Banner is not really fulfilling the mandate that was initially or was set in 2015 by Synod. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Greg Sinclair, Jonathan Sprunk, and Skylar.
Greg Sinclair, Classes Toronto. I speak against the motion. I'd just like to say I came into the CRC through a church plant, and two things really mattered a lot to me at the time. First of all, our world belongs to God, the contemporary testimony, and second, the Banner. The Banner is how I learned about the Christian Reformed Church, and it functioned well as a kitchen table, and I think it still does. I would hate to lose that. And so as I think about our world belongs to God, I think that it's all about engaging with the world and not being afraid to. And the Banner should continue to do that. In this synod, we have sometimes talked about confessional limits, quite a bit actually, and often that has seemed good and right, but in this case, it feels repressive. Thank you.
Jonathan Sprunk, Schuyler, and Scott Closter.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yep.
I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And in the 60s and 70s, we paid a lot of attention to the generation gap. There was the voice of the man, and the younger generation stood against the institution and the man. And an entire generation was mobilized to speak truth to power. And this was the cause. And the church rallied to the cause. The two most influential editions of the Banner, can anybody guess what they were? The first one was already mentioned, 1980. Andy Kuyvenhoven came in and he said, what? What is it time to do? That's right. The other most influential edition of the Banner, especially if you check, sorry Nate, by AI, do you know the other probably the most influential edition of the Banner was written in 1970, and was called The Banana. One of the things, now I'm part of, I can say, hey boomer, and I got to do it in the mirror, okay? I look at myself. There's another generation gap. The difficulty that old folks like me have is that when I hear generation gap, I think one thing. We as a committee have been listening very carefully to diverse voices, to people outside of power. All of those things that the banana and the burning of the wooden shoes said. And when we listen to the younger generation, we hear kitchen table. I'm dining in a cafeteria. And I don't know if I'll agree with what my elders think. But I've had a lot of elders that say, that's a good question. Tell me what you think. And a lot of people in the younger generation are saying, can my parents please just tell us what they think? I might accept it or I might reject it, but just let me know. And so I know that what we've done here will be controversial, particularly with a lot of people like me. But I would ask people like me who were frustrated with the man and the generations ahead of them that we didn't feel we were listened to maybe pause and imagine that subsequent generations have a voice too. And what they ask for, well, we should listen. So that's where this comes from. And I understand that a lot of people my age hear this in a certain way. And I think we should listen to the younger generations.
Actually, Jonathan was accidentally removed from the queue. So Jonathan is up first, then Skylar, and then Scott Klooster.
Jonathan Sprunk, class of Central Plains. I appreciated some of the delegates talking about what's drawing them home right now. For me right now, my son tonight is playing an Appellate Christian baseball game, which in and of itself is not that big of a deal, but they're playing tonight at the Field of Dreams baseball field. And I found out about that after I got delegated. And so I'm here under protest. I should be there. No. Josh, do not put that I'm here under protest. Don't write that down. I speak in favor of this motion. I've been in ministry for 15 years in the Christian Reformed Church, and without getting into many details, for the most part, in church, my parish ministry, the banner has been a net negative for me. And I get the kitchen table analogy, but things happen. I have young families that join my church, and the first exposure to the wider Christian Reformed Church world is the banner. And I have lost families who have received it and go, well, wait a minute, I thought we believed this, and I have to do apologetics, and I don't mind doing apologetics with my people. But it gets weary that I do it with the official publication of my own denomination. I appreciate the idea that we need, to be strengthened with headwinds. But in this day and age, my people, there's plenty of cultural headwinds my people face. I don't think they lack being challenged. It's nice to not have to have that challenge come within the house. I appreciate the reason why we did the kitchen table analogy. My grandmother, the Banner was literally the only magazine she ever got. So she probably needed to be pushed and challenged, because that was literally the only media she would consume. That's not true of my generation. And so I think the kitchen table analogy is what it is. I would appreciate a front door analogy. For many of my people, the banner becomes the front door to the denomination, where they go, oh, this is what we do. This is what we're about. That's what is happening with, and like we've seen with these videos from Gather and stuff like that. Oh, that's what's going on in British Columbia. That's what's happening in Houston. Or this is what we believe and why we believe it. And I would love to be able to give a banner to my people saying, this is who we are. Isn't it great? I speak in favor of the motion.
Yes, Skylar Pike, and then Scott Klooster and Ben Wimmers.
Skylar Pike, Muskegon classes. Mr. Chairman, I seek clarification a little bit on under the freedom of editorial staff. E, the last sentence added, with proper acknowledgement and respect for the official positions of the CRCNA within the confines of our confessional covenant commitments. It seems like we could have diverse views within it, maybe even pushing the boundaries of our views a little bit, but acknowledge that this is what the Christian Reformed Church teaches. And so I'd just like a little clarification on that language, if possible, please, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I'm not sure I totally understood. What's ambiguous about the language? That will help me in trying to clarify.
Well, for instance, if you look at environmental justice, there may be certain things that are that you will like. So you could be more pro-abortion type stance, or what something I would not take. But there are people in the environmental movement, and some even in the Christian environmental movement, that will say we need to support abortion or euthanasia, and that would be contrary to the confessions and the positions and confessions of the CRCNA. How far can someone go? Because you could say the official position is this, but I'm going to argue contrary to that, completely 180-degree opposite, or I'm going to argue slightly different. What are the bounds of that clause?
I'm not sure I can say it better than it's written, but it would be acknowledgement and respect to the official positions of the CRCNA and within the confessional commitment. So I would expect in that context, as you indicated, that if someone was advocating the indication would the indication would be this is contrary to what the Christian Reformed Church's interpretation of Scripture, and we believe it's wrong.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Scott Klooster, Ben Wimmers, Rob Toornstra.
Scott Klooster, Classis, Alberta North. I would actually I have an amendment to propose, and hopefully it's up there. I do have to make one little adjustment. I noticed after I sent it that I meant, instead of saying social platforms, I meant to say media platforms. So by media, that also includes paper versions. And so my amendment would say, and it's just a small change to the subsection 5, and it would read that the banner would represent the denomination publicly to the broader Christian church and to the world at large on all media platforms by speaking from a distinctly Reformed perspective in line with our confessions and synodical decisions representing the CRCNA in its official publication. This is just a little bit of a close the loop thing, and I think clarity is key. And so I feel this amendment is a friendly amendment, but closes potential gaps or future platforms for engaging the world. So it makes it really inclusive, I think, without it having to be inferred. I appreciate the analogy that Chong gave us. However, there's two ways to view that analogy. There is no neutral ground. And I think that if the banner is representative of the denomination, then we should engage the resistance from a clear position instead of leaving it neutrally up to the reader, assuming their foundational understanding is what it was 30 years ago. Critical thinking was mentioned earlier, and I think most of us realize that social media has actually killed critical thinking for most people and young people. And so I think critical thinking is only possible if there's a foundation to actually work from. And so I feel that this recommendation adequately changes the way the banner will engage the resistance, and the amendment ensures that it happens on all media platforms.
So it's not necessarily a friendly amendment, but we're also going to say that it's clearly implied. Or you want to comment on that?
We don't judge that to be a friendly amendment, and we think it's unnecessary because we already say represent the denomination publicly to the broader Christian church and to the world at large. And in our view, that covers everything.
So how is it unfriendly then?
It's unnecessary.
How is this clarification unfriendly? It's not changing anything. It's not changing anything germane. It's just clearing it up. So I don't understand how it's unfriendly. Please explain.
That's a great, I guess it goes back to what is the definition of unfriendly. We think it's unnecessary and it's already implied in what we wrote, so we don't think it helps.
But unfriendly is where it would be challenged. So if it's not unfriendly, it's up for discussion, correct?
Another element in this is the banner is one rather special element of denominational communication. One of the things that we talked about in committee is that there are other elements of denominational communication that are out there separate from the banner. And so the banner isn't, let's say, the only voice of the denomination on all media platforms. One of the things we also wrestled with is that the banner is a magazine, but there's a print version and there's an online element. But then there are for example, one of the things that was mentioned about the denomination hearing each other, well, there's the network. That's also out there. And so in terms of the banner, this, I think, dilutes the specific nature of the banner, and for that reason, we don't find it necessarily in alignment with our work.
I understand that, but I don't think you're actually addressing. I think we're getting lost in the weeds again because other social media platforms or any other outlets. Okay.
Yeah, we can't keep arguing here. We're going to, I think that all of this is implied. I'm going to suggest that he would withdraw for a while this amendment so we can hear some other speakers and hopefully some of this stuff will be clarified. He does not withdraw? Well, then it has to be. So then he has making a motion? It has to be seconded. So is there a seconder for this motion? It's not seconded, so we're not going to move on. Thank you. Ben Wimmers, Rob Tornstra, and Aaron Thompson.
Ben Wimmers, Classis BC Southeast. And I speak against this motion. I think if this goes through, this is going to be a bit of a black mark on this synod. It begins by striking the word diversity. Time and time again, we have celebrated our binationality, our growing ethnic churches, our desire to plant diaspora churches. Revelation 7 has been invoked countless times of a vision of what we're going, and so we're going to finish our synod by saying, I don't think the word diverse is what we want to put forward as part of our banner mandate. What's more, I wrestle with people protesting this kitchen table idea, right? Part of the banner's mandate is to lead and encourage responsible discussion. The contributors from the banner are already leaders in our denomination. They are already people who are leading our churches and our regions through these discussions. And I know as a minister, as not a boomer, though the youth call me that, as someone that engages with youth and family and young adults, I love to use the banner in our discussions for some of those controversial things, for some of those different points of views, because I think it's important that we put forward an image of a denomination as one that discusses, as one that deliberates, as one that engages with hard ideas across a diversity of opinions. To restrict and constrict that, the banner just becomes our website in print form. If you want to know what we believe, crcna.org/position statements. It's all there. The mandate of the banner is great as is because it provides a common space where we can discuss. And frankly, I love putting an article down with diverse opinions because it's easier to discuss an article than sometimes to wrestle with the opinions of the person directly across from you. I struggle with limiting the prophetic voice, saying that, well, you can be prophetic and only so far as you kind of agree with towing the party line. Could you imagine if the prophets came with a prophetic voice and the Levites said, well, that's against the Synod of Jerusalem 480 BCE? I worry that we're also becoming afraid of disagreement and discussion, whereas I have found at this synod that it is actually edifying to disagree and to work through that. Day one, I stood up here and said, I want to take away your guns. And I've had some incredibly edifying conversations with those that disagreed with me. It's been fantastic, and I think my relationship with my American brothers and sisters is better for it. Lastly, and I want to thank Dr. Joustra for this image in her interview, if we move forward in this direction, I fear that we are moving in a direction that restricts and constricts the banner to the point where it is going to become an intellectual cul-de-sac. And we may end up closing off the only route out in the end and being stuck.
Yeah, we hear you. Thank you. Rob Tornstra, Aaron Thompson, and Ray Vanderkoy.
Rob Tornstra, Classis Columbia. I loved Brother Tamming's description of coming home from school every day and looking for the banner. I had a similar one. We would rush to church on Sunday morning and try to get the banner first out of our mailbox. Now, I'm not sure if I was eager to read the banner or if I just wanted to beat my brother to the mailbox so I could steal it from him and have it first in the church pew, but I digress. I think we're mischaracterizing some of the debate here. We're creating a false dichotomy between saying, well, we have the freedom to disagree on something or we have to live within a straitjacket. That's not what we're talking about. In the recommendation as it's written, it does say that the issues pertinent to the life of the church in a way that shows the positions, it's plural. So this allows for different positions. There's lots of places we can disagree on these issues and still remain within the framework of our confessional boundaries. Paul stole a little bit of my thunder because up until Paul spoke a minute ago, no one had mentioned the network. The network is a place where you can go and discuss and debate and have all kinds of disagreements and even challenge, if you want to, some of the convictions that we hold as a group. That's a great place to have the kitchen table. We're not getting rid of the kitchen table. We're moving it, and we're saying that the banner is to represent the official positions, and then to engage those positions and to work out how do we live these out and how do we apply them and where can we disagree on them. And the network and CRC Voices and other places give you the opportunity to maybe challenge those. So I speak in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Aaron Thompson, Ray Vanderkooy, and James Haybourg.
Aaron Thompson. Classis Eastern Canada. Last time I spoke at this mic, I botched the landing, so I'm going to see how we do here. I speak against the motion, but I'm going to put the burden on the reporter to see if he can bring me back. Under Section 3, Freedom of Editorial Staff, I understand the moment that we're in. I also grew up in Fredericton, just outside of Fredericton, New Brunswick, in the only CRC in a province that is a long ways away from here. And so I have a great appreciation for the banner because as a kid, for me, it was helpful to know that we're connected to a bigger denomination. And I just want to say that, like, I understand the concerns, all that. But when we get to the freedom of editorial staff, was there any conversation in your advisory committee to move that new thing that you put under the new C, so the with proper acknowledgement and respect for the official positions of the CRCNA and within the confines of our confessional covenant commitments, like that's the moment that we're in. Was there any conversation to move that up to the first heading? So in order that it may carry on these diverse responsibilities, the editorial staff, with proper acknowledgement, like, did you think about moving that up so that you could keep C and D in there? Like, acknowledge the editorial staff works within these confines, that's the word that it's used. Was there any acknowledgement that we could put that up there and keep some of this kitchen table stuff, but acknowledging that this is the voice, you know, it's the official publication of the CRC? Was that part of your conversation at all?
Give me a moment. Consult with my chair.
While they confer, I'm starting to see where the conversation, the boundaries of the conversation, I'm starting not to hear a whole lot of new material. So just a reminder, we got a bunch of names. Sorry?
Yeah.
There are 39 in the queue. So within the hour or so, we're going to start having a debate about when we're going to shut this off, okay? You're going to respond to the question.
Yeah, I was struggling how to respond because when you're in a committee and you're doing editing in a committee, it's hard to say, well, did you think about putting this up there and moving it over? I don't remember having that discussion. I think what we wrote is our effort to say as clearly as we can. And in fairness, we worked a lot with the drafting of classes Hartman and thought that fit. So that's my response.
I think losing C and D is a mistake.
Okay. Ray Vanderkooy, James Haybourg, and Dan Tracy.
Ray Vanderkooy, classes Huron. Yeah, I'm saddened by how restrictive this proposal is on the editorial staff. We talked about the minimum necessary force in a previous discussion. This feels like a maximum unnecessary force. I believe that we need to consider the current climate that we're in. There are a lot of members, ministers, and churches that are watching us and wondering. And I believe that adopting this motion could alienate more members and ministers and churches of the CRC. Even many in agreement with the HSR, like myself, have departed from the church over the past year because of the perceived judgmental, punitive, and restrictive decisions of our previous synod. And I myself was on the line last summer in terms of, for those reasons, staying or leaving the CRC. And I believe that this restricted motion creates an increasingly smaller echo chamber that I wonder if I can breathe in. And if adopted, I might not see any reason to read the banner because I know what it says already.
Thank you, Ray.
I wanted to speak a little bit to the previous speaker too, in terms of, so as the chair of the committee, we've got a whole variety of things before us. And so one of the ways to sort of help the committee process through was there's a banner advisory committee in the COD, in the Council of Delegates. Should we speak to them? There's the banner mandate. Should that be adjusted or thrown out? And then there's the view of how exactly does communication work in the Christian Reformed Church? And one of the things that we talked about in committee was the banner is one rather unique element of a much broader communication strategy. I understand what this committee is doing is narrowing the banner. I get that. But the main reason here is that the banner lives in a very different media environment that it did in the 1930s, or the 1960s, or the 1980s, and even 1990s. And so part of what we are trying to do here is adjust the banner not only within the overall ecosystem of the new internet age, where again, it's not a kitchen table, it's a noisy cafeteria, but also within the family of Christian Reformed communication products. Now again, a good number of you know I have a YouTube channel, and if anybody watches my YouTube channel, my main complaint, often from Christian Reformed people, is that I'm way too broad. I talk too nicely about the Orthodox, too nicely about the Catholics, too nicely about the atheists. I'm as broad as you're going to find in the Christian Reformed Church right now, probably. But the purpose of this committee is to say, where does the banner fit within a larger ecosystem of communication within the Christian Reformed Church? And given that the banner is unique, as it is the official magazine of the Christian Reformed Church, the work of this committee was to narrow it so that it could have a bit more definition in a much broader ecosystem.
Thank you, Paul, for that clarification. James Haybour, Dan Tracy, and Grace Burns.
Jim Highboard, Classes Granville. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity, if I could see if the banner could stop sending me 3 copies of the banner to my house. They could feel free to send my son to my son, and my mother, she doesn't need it anymore because she's reading different things up in heaven. But anyway, yeah, I'm of the era that I still read the print version, and I'm one of the 3, I think, that do that. Maybe that's why they send me 3 copies. I don't know. But, you know, I remember the banana. That's one of the few editions that I do remember. My memory isn't that great. But I speak in favor of this recommendation because I think it brings us back to where we need to be. I've seen a shift in the banner over the last 2 to 3 years since the whole HSR subject has come up. And I think that's probably one of the most written about subjects that has been in there over the last 3 years. And the perception has become that
We're not going to get into the content of the banner if we can avoid that.
Okay, I was just going to say why I thought this brought it back. Is that okay?
Just don't talk about the content of the banner.
Got it. Got it. Okay, let me take 10 seconds here. I speak in favor of this because I think it brings it back to what it should be, and that's that it's the voice of the Christian Reformed Church. And as the voice of the Christian Reformed Church, it has to be a publication that if somebody picks it up, they know this is what the Christian Reformed Church stands for. Does that work?
Yep, thank you. Wonderful. Dan Tracy, Grace Burns, and then Israel Ladi.
Dan Tracy from Classes Heartland, and I speak in favor of this motion. And I want to thank the committee for its work. I know this had to be a very difficult situation for you guys. We dealt with the appeals, and I'm not sure I would switch with you folks on your committee. So I do appreciate all of your hard work. And with saying that, you know, there is a diversity of opinions out there. And so we get plenty of that. But I like where you're heading on this because I actually live in, I'm going to say, a divorced marriage when it comes to the banner. My wife reads the banner. I do not. And we used to be able to read the banner together, but we don't. And so it'd be nice to do that again. And I think with some of the things that you put there, we'll have a narrower focus. And I know people say that doesn't give us the views, but you're not telling them what they have to write. But you're giving us an opportunity to do that together. And I also think that it's important that when somebody's representing us, that it indeed represents us. For that when somebody picks it up, they know, oh, this is what they believe. And I know somebody said, well, you can go to the website and see that. Well, the website's more, this is more open. And so I appreciate your work, and I speak highly in favor of this recommendation.
Very good, thank you. Reminder, just stick to the mandate especially of the banner and the motion that is actually before us. Grace Burns, Israel Adi, and Philip Apol.
Grace Burns, BC Northwest Young Adult Representative. I've been hearing a lot about talking about young people's perspectives and stuff, so I figured I'd throw out my 2 cents. I want to commend the banner for its thoughtful contributions throughout its ministry, its commitment to exploring a wide range of ideas and engaging in meaningful intellectual inquiry and exchange of thought. I believe that the publication has proven itself as a trustworthy and reflective voice that represents not only the academic perspectives within the CRCNA, but those of pastoral leaders and laymen alike. When a confessional and safe institution provides a space for engaging with complex topics, it encourages critical thinking, and to quote the banner's own language, allows, quote, readers to reassess their own thinking. This in turn fosters a sense of safety and openness, particularly among young people. Thank you.
Thank you. Israel Adi, Philip Apol, and Brandon Seaver.
Israel Adi, Chicago South. So there's a person in our congregation who is struggling with transgenderism. They're not a member, but they've been attending. And that person wrote to me not too long ago. They said, hello, Pastor Israel. Thank you and the church for all your open, welcoming arms. Now, just imagine if this same person comes across the article that came on the banner, Church at War. Although it was an opinion piece, to be clear, the sentiment of the author of that piece was saying that the church...
Israel, we're not going to talk about the content of the banner. Be careful where you're going.
Well, I'm just kind of explaining this recommendation helps clear up exactly what this situation that I'm speaking about. I agree with the recommendation because if this person would have come across this article that describes that the CRCNA is a church at war against people that differ with them in their opinion of sexuality, this person would probably be offended and be taken aback by our congregation.
Okay.
And so I think that this recommendation makes it clear that what we do is speak from a clear confessional point of view, and the diverse opinions within the Reformed context is not we shouldn't advocate for a diversity of confessions, so we can have a diversity of opinions, but within the framework and the fence of a defined Reformed confession.
Thank you. Philip, and then Brandon Seaver and John Brinkman. Let's avoid, we have to make a judgment call about the content. Sometimes using just as a jumping off point to get at something, but let's avoid referring to specific articles in the banner.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I speak against the motion. I think it's not a secret that, since the HSR came, we kind of divided into different factions in our denomination, and that at the end there was kind of a winning side. And it could be interpreted since then, with a bunch of the overtures that have come the last couple years, that one of the pushes now is to try to push out diverse opinions. So we've had a number of overtures about vetting nominations for different boards or organizations. Now an overture to get rid of diverse opinions in the banner. And it could also be interpreted then that, you know, in our world, when you get into a position of power, often that's what you do. You know, we have seen in the history of our world, for example, you know, places like the Soviet Union or China or, you know, Iran, where, you know, you try to shut up those who disagree with you. And I wonder how many times we think about the other side then. So I've heard people in this thing talk, in this synod talk about how, you know, it's important that we learn how to trust the other side. But we haven't asked questions about how does the other side learn to trust us. We've talked in this, I've heard conversation in this about how the banner has offended people, but we don't talk about how we might have offended others. And I think we're a church, and a church asks questions about the other. So in Philippians 2, we are reminded that, you know, we are to not look at ourselves better than others, but we're to consider others the way Christ considered others, who gave up his life and so forth. How do we do that? So that's one of my points. The other point is, we tend to view this from the perspective of the church as an institution. We're also an organism. And the organism does not necessarily have the same uniformity as the institution does. We've heard, for example, a lot of discussions already. You've probably noticed that most of the people speaking against this are from Canada. And there are different ideas in Canada. This is one of those ways where binationality plays a role in our denomination. This is going to offend Canadian brothers and sisters probably more than it would offend American brothers and sisters. We tend to have a different view on diversity of opinions and expressing diversity. Sometimes we're even, not always, but sometimes we're even better at getting along with each other with diversity of opinions. I think we're both in cultures now where that's becoming more difficult in our political scene, but I just want us to consider that.
Thank you, Phil. So I think, you know what, we want to remain confessional. We want to have some room for conversation within all of that. The question now is this recommendation from the committee, does it cover both of those things? I'm not hearing a whole lot of new stuff. So, but, you know, we're going to have coffee in 15 minutes. We have almost discussed this for an hour. So I think we're starting to get a little bit of an idea about where we need to vote. So just keep that in mind. I'd like to somehow finish this up or right around coffee time if we can. So Brandon Seaver, John Brinkman, and Christian.
Thank you. Brandon Seaver, Classes Georgetown, and I speak in favor of these changes. I applaud Paul and Craig, your committee, for the grappling with all this. I'm going to reduce some of my comments and focus on a new aspect, I hope. Last night, we talked very passionately, very appropriately about our mission to make disciples, to reach the lost. But I'd like us to also think about the generation that's coming up in our church right now, and that many in prior generations have left our church. They've come up in our church. They're, at least in our area, unfortunately, but hopefully we're making changes in this, there hasn't been a lot of catechizing of our youth to help them understand what we believe to be true. We're doing that at my church. And I'm going to share a little anecdote about that and then connect it to why I support this motion. In my time helping lead high school catechism at my church and having conversations with members at my church, I was reminded time and time again about the curiosity of the next generation. I had a conversation with one of the teachers at our local Christian high school just a couple months ago, and she shared with me something that I was so much encouraged by. It's like, there's hope for this generation, yes. And that is, in the Bible class at the high school teacher surveys the seniors at the end of the course and asks them, as you are about to go into the next part of your life, what is something that you wish you could have learned more about in terms of your faith or the Bible in general? And for the first time, as I understood it, in 20 years, apologetics cracked into the top 5. I was thinking, it took 20 years for apologetics to be in the top 5, but glory to God that it was. And I see that these changes, a commitment to our truths, our confessionality, is going to help with that mission. We want to reach and save the lost, but we also need to help our next generation embrace the truth so that when they embrace those truths, they go into their adulthood, Lord willing, they will hold to those and cling to those. I see the banner as having an excellent opportunity to renew and revise, recommit to that mission, and speak into that space. Help it become what it once was. I'm hearing it was, which is a magazine that people enjoyed reading. Over the last 20 years, between my prior church and my current church, the consensus was when they get the banner, it's on the kitchen table, but it's buried under a bunch of other stuff. So let's make it something people want to read.
Thank you. Let's not talk about the content of the banner. Brandon Seaver, John Brinkman. Oh, I'm sorry, was that just you, Brandon? John Brinkman and Christian.
John Brinkman, Classes Hamilton, one of the Canadians speaking against the motion. Thank you, Phil. I want to go on record as saying I prefer not to live in the echo chamber. I do believe that the banner can and should be clear on denominational positions, but I don't believe that being clear on denominational positions and allowing diverse opinions are mutually exclusive. It's challenging. We should be able to do both. As far as being the public face of the denomination, I don't think that we should be afraid of being the denomination with diverse voices. One of the overtures made the claim that this change would promote trust and unity. I believe it will increase uniformity, but let's not conflate uniformity and unity. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Christian.
Yeah, Christian Sebastia, Rocky Mountain Classes. I am request help to read my response to my brother Scott because I prefer my words to be clearly to understand.
Okay, these are the words of Christian. Brothers and sisters of Synod, with the deepest respect for this assembly and for the office of journalism, I rise not in anger, but in clarity. As both a pastor in this denomination and the father of a young woman whose words were quoted this morning by the Banner's editor to justify discomfort as a tool for spiritual growth, I feel compelled to respond. Let me be clear. I do not object to discomfort. I agree that the Spirit often works through challenge. But what I do object to, firmly and pastorally, is when discomfort is weaponized by a publication that claims to serve the church yet refuses to submit to the very confessional identity and the synodical authority of that church. We are not debating discomfort, we're debating accountability. This is not about silencing voices, it's about calling the Banner back to its mandate as outlined in the Synod and reaffirmed in the recommendation before us. We're to be a faithful Reformed voice, aligned with Scripture, the confessions, and the decisions of Synod. When the Banner publishes perspectives that contradict
Okay,
the
we're not going
position...
to talk about the content of the banner. Let's speak.
It's not about the content. I'm just reading. I don't know what to do. Okay?
30 seconds more.
When the Banner publishes perspectives that contradict the positions of the body and presents them without theological framing, pastoral clarity or confessional grounding does not foster growth, it fosters confusion. Not diversity, it fosters distrust. I speak not just as a pastor, but as a father. When my daughter's words were co-opted to defend editorial independence, that defies our communal covenant. It is not maturity we are modeling, it is manipulation. Let us affirm the committee's recommendation not to punish journalism, but to protect the integrity of our witness. Let the banner be reformed, let it be honest, but above all, let it be faithful to the church it claims to serve. And finally, I would remind us all that the Apostle Paul warned against engaging in disputes in front of those who do not understand the faith. Our public witness is shaped not only by what we affirm, but by how and where we choose to debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. No applause, no applause, we're good, we're good. Oh, Chong, would you?
May I have just a little clarification? Because it was said that I might be weaponizing and manipulating. Is it okay, can I respond to that a little bit? Just to clarify that I'm no intention.
No, you know what, Chong, I think we're good. We're
Okay.
gonna have.
Okay.
We're almost done.
All right.
Yeah, very good. Actually, we accidentally removed Josh Stoop from the queue, so actually Josh is up next, and then Randy, and then Mark.
Josh Stope, Classes Atlantic Northeast. I'm not as old as some of the delegates here, so I do not really remember a time when I was excited to get home and read the banner. And I don't really know many people who still read the banner to be informed. It's more of a vehicle for gossip and controversy. I'm not afraid of diversity, and I don't want the discourse to disappear, but the only thing I ever see is diversity and confusion, and when people in our denomination need guidance and belonging and identity. And so I want to propose an amendment to the mandate of the banner. Add a number 6 to regularly include comprehensive, orthodox, and informative articles on the confessions and creeds of the CRCNA. Thank you.
That's not friendly. I support. So that's a motion to what? A motion to amend? So it's a motion to add, which is debatable. There's been a seconder for that, so we'll have. I heard a seconder. Was there a seconder? There was support. So it is debatable. We're going to start a new queue to talk about this new addition. Just to remind you, we are not moving forward here. Now we're going to start a new conversation about this amendment. So we have a new queue opened up to address this amendment. Yes, the reporter has the right to speak to this.
Yeah. My sense is that this goes too far in attempting to prescribe what has to be written about. That really wasn't our goal, to try to control the content. Rather, it was to identify the boundaries, if you will, and really our main emphasis was, I think it's in 2A2, where we want the banner to show the positions held by the church and encourage biblical and reformed thinking of these issues. So I don't see that. Yeah, I don't think it. I think it's too prescriptive and beyond what needs to be included in the mandate.
Yeah, you know what? As officers, we're thinking that we're going to put a time limit on this particular conversation. So let's give it like a 3-minute conversation, and then we're gonna call the question on this. So next is Adrian, and then Richard.
Adrian Vandenbout, Classes Atlantic Northeast. Yes, I sit next to this gentleman, call him a friend, so I'm going to be a little biased for it. I like that this sets a clear tone for what we were hoping for. I was hoping it would be a friendly amendment on his behalf, but we understand that this does set a guideline. I think from all the conversation, Mr. President, that we've been having, this hones in on what we want. If it is accepted, that's great. If not, we will have to trust the body. Yes, I think this will generate the kind of kitchen table talk that we're hoping for. Thank you.
Thank you. So then Richard and Kevin, and then we're going to call it right there, I think.
Rich Van Donkersgood, Classes Huron. I think Craig identified this properly. It's not friendly and shouldn't be imposed on the banner. That is part of the freedoms of editorial staff that I think we should leave, and you can make a suggestion to the banner that maybe they should print some of that stuff, but I don't think it should be in the mandate. I speak against that addition.
Thank you. And then Kevin, and then we're going to vote.
Kevin Vanderveen, Classes Alberta South and Saskatchewan. I'm a minister of the word in the denomination, and I speak against this because what I see up there is my job description. I'm a local pastor in a congregation tasked with teaching my church the positions of our church. So it seems to me that we're tasking the banner to do the job of a minister of the word, and that just doesn't seem fit to me.
Okay, so we're going to cease debate on that. Yeah. Oh, yes, that's right. We're going to vote on ceasing debate. So all those in favor of ceasing debate signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, that carries. So we are ceased debate on that. So now we're voting on the amendment itself. All those in favor of adding this amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Aye. Okay, that did not carry. So now we're going back to the original motion on the floor. And I think I need to have a little powwow with my buddies up here. Just give us a few moments to discuss what we need to do next. All right, here we are. Heard lots of comments. I think we get a general flavor where people are at. I think most of us know where we're going to vote. Some of the comments are starting to get a little sharper. So I'm going to propose that we cease debate. Support? We're going to vote on that right now. All those in favor of ceasing debate signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? This carries. So now we're going to vote on the main motion. We're going to make the computers ready because we're going to do this electronically, and I'm also going to suggest that we have a word of prayer as well for this whole vote. Go ahead, Craig. You had offer a word of prayer for this vote. Let's pray.
Thank you. Wonderful God, we are so grateful that we belong to you. We are so grateful that you give us brothers and sisters with a variety of skills and that help us to debate these challenging issues. We seek to lead our church well. The banner plays such an important part in that. We pray that you will give us wisdom as we vote, and that you will use the work of this body to build your church. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Is the vote open yet there, Josh? Just hold on for a second. So, yeah, maybe we just read what the motion is again, Craig?
Okay, very good. Yeah, so what you are voting for, we just did B1. We can do B2 in just a minute, but that you're amending the synodical mandate and guidelines for the banner as shown below with underline indicating additions and strike through indicating deletions. That's the document that's before you.
Okay, we're good to vote? Let's vote. So this clearly carries. Right now, it's the yes is 129, the no is 35, and the abstain is 3. So 130, now it's 131, 36, and 3.
Yes.
So that carries. And now we're going to go to point 2 to be approved, that Synod declare that this to be the response to overtures 5 and 6.
I hope this will be, yes, less controversial. That is our motion, that Synod declare this to be its response to overtures 5 and 6.
You have a comment?
I would like to table that motion, yeah, I'd like to motion to table that motion, so have a coffee break and come back. I have an amendment that I can't put, or not, it's not an amendment, it's a motion from the floor that I think I can't be able to present unless we have those discussions, and I think it is germane based on the conversation that we've had.
Okay, we can vote to is there support for this? There is support? So then we're going to vote to table. That's what we're going to do. All those in favor of tabling this last motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Sorry. Okay, we're going to have coffee at the, oh, no, we got to vote. That's right. We're going to vote that Synod declare this to be the response to overtures 5 and 6. All those in favor of this signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Perfect. Okay, now we're going to have coffee. Let's have coffee.